like, here, I'm going to toss this ball and you're going to hit it. And you're going to hit off this tee and try to hit this outside pitch, try to hit this inside pitch. No talk about how. Anything I did was things that I had picked up just from God knows where, like, okay, well, I'm going to do this drill where I take my knob to the ball. I'm going to try to stay back, whatever that means. There was no feedback of like, you're doing this, fix this issue. This is how we're going to do it. This is how your swing should look, feel. This is why. None of that happened for me. So I was relying on my pure natural athletic ability with no direction for it. There was nobody like Carlton who could take it and harness it and get me to use it to my benefit. And so for that reason, I struggled because, you know, when you go to practice and you have issues, like practice is kind of where you're supposed to build that confidence. And I didn't have that because why would I? I didn't have the right swing. Therefore, I didn't hit very well in practice. I didn't hit very well in games. When I got a hold of it, I could, and I could use my athleticism to be decent, but I was never, I wasn't even close to where I was at the last 2 years of my career. So that was the biggest thing, was that there was just, as much as I wanted that direction, as much as I wanted to bridge that gap between, hey, this is what you could be and what I was at the time, nobody could do that for me, and therefore I couldn't do it for myself. So yeah.
All right. So understanding that, a little background, a little context, let's go to freshman year. Bailee showed up on campus. So let's see that. Here we go. Can you see that, Bailee?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Bailee, freshman year in the cage. Just have a look. Bailee's a big fan of slow motion videos, so her stuff's super slow.
You can see the shift.
So what you see, I'll go to the first one since it plays faster. So what you see, obviously, from the first video is she's kind of open, really wide, really stiff hands. You can see the big lateral sway from the very beginning. Big lateral sway, like just kind of tap the toe down, trying to figure out how to time up the ball. And then it's just a down. I mean, it's just your classic down and direct swing down, swing direct, and just try to hit the ball. So, you know, that's what she was as a freshman. I actually did not see this video until a couple days ago when we were starting to put this together. She's like, I have a video from my freshman year. And so she sent this over, and I was like, this will go around great. So that's what it looks like as a freshman. And as a freshman, you know, Bailee hit 268, 6-1-4 with 413 slugging and 57 total bases. So Bailee, you know, coming into college, starting to face better pitching. That kind of year right there, how did you feel about that?
Oh, I was miserable. I think a lot of the younger kids, like the select kids who they commit, they go into college expecting coaches who are going to have like almost like the magic pill. And I was pretty disappointed to find that my whole entire freshman year, and this is no shade to any of the coaches I've had, but I found out my entire freshman year, I was still sending videos to my old hitting coach, and I was still trying to figure everything out on my own. And it wasn't for lack of trying. It was just for lack of information and lack of knowing where to start. It was just like the competition got harder, but my tools didn't get any better. And therefore I struggled a lot. And I know, you know, as a freshman, those numbers aren't awful, but I knew they weren't reflective of what I could have done and my ability to do, you know, my ability to hit, my ability to be good at softball. It was, sorry, my phone's ringing. I still had that disconnect. Not much had changed from high school and select. I still felt like I wasn't reaching my potential. I still felt like I was missing something. Like there were gaps that weren't being filled and that nobody was filling for me, and I had no idea how to do that. So I go into the summer, and the only new tool I have is, okay, I have a year of college under my belt. I know what the pitchers are like. What can I do to be ready for that? And really the biggest improvement from freshman and sophomore year was like my swing a little bit. You know, there was little things I got better at for whatever reason. Nothing really special I did. I think it's just kind of getting a little stronger and a little more mature with college. But that was the biggest thing, was just having a little bit more confidence, a little bit more edge, a little bit more weight behind the ball, because I gained some muscle after, you know, lifting and stuff. So that was really the only change I had, and I was just still feeling really behind and really confused, and like I wanted to work hard, but how do I work hard? How do I do it? How do I get there? So
all right, so going into your sophomore year now, you know, your summertime, what are you trying to do? Like, what were you trying to do to like improve upon all that stuff?
right. So I want to say that was the year we got the machine. It may have been I don't know, but something like that. I knew I was wanting to see more velocity, so we did more live. We got this like machine that like would blink lights and it'd tell you when it was going to go, so it was better than nothing. I was really just trying to do anything I could to get better, and I was in the cage a lot. My biggest thing I remember from that summer was I would tell myself to stay back, whatever that means. We could, you know, have a whole nother thing on that, but I was just telling myself to stay back. And that was it was like my confidence, as my confidence got lower, it's like I'm trying more and more to go get the ball. So I was just telling myself to stay back, and it did some things for me. I think that I didn't intentionally mean to do, things that I wasn't really targeting, and I didn't know that it needed to be improved, but it did. And my swing wasn't great by any means, but it was better than my freshman year because of that. So it was almost kind of like I got lucky. And I told myself one thing that actually helped me out a little bit, but it was really just that. It was luck, and it was me going to the cage and just trying every drill I could throw at it, and every, you know, trick under the sun that there was, just to see if something would stick and something would make me be that much better. But I still it was kind of like, you know, finding that needle in a haystack at that point. So it was just kind of a little bit of luck, a little bit of hard work, but still not really where I wanted to be or where I knew I could be.
All right, so she said she found a needle in a haystack. Well, she found 11 of them, and you're going to see some of this stuff, and you're like, that's actually pretty good. So let's go to sophomore year. This is against Baylor. Can you see this?
Velocity.
Yeah.
All right, so this is against Baylor.
Velocity.
It's up there.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
All right, so as you can see, still the same, you know, wide open stance. You know, hands are really low to start with,
65, I want to say,
and really like a really stiff toe tap type of move. You know, not much rhythm here. I'll let you guys in on this a little bit. So she presets in this video. She presets her back hip, which is fine, but she's preset her back hip and she's still trying to load more. That was just a byproduct of her not really knowing how to load, which you'll see in some of the later videos how like that actually turns into a really big advantage for her. But at this time, you can see she's kind of preset in the hip, which is fine, but she's still trying to sway back or rock back and get more. That's just a byproduct of not really knowing. So in turn, in order to stop herself, that's where the big kind of early toe tap has to come in and kind of stop so she can actually see and read the ball. And then you see this big kind of shift forward and then a really army action. Now, here's kind of the incredible thing. So she talked about, I'm trying to stay behind the ball. You actually can see the barrel trying to get turned some. So you can see she's not going, she may be thinking she's going directly to the ball, but you can kind of see the actions of the barrel working back a little bit. I'll move on to another video here. So here's a ball. Can you see this one? Can you see this one, Bailee?
Yeah.
All right, so here's against Sam Houston. I'll let you watch this full, but she actually hits this ball pretty good. Okay, so ball elevated in the zone, which if you know that people that are a little bit that are really handsy and push, like balls elevated to the zone are a little bit easier for them to hit. So ball's up, but as you can see, like really stiff. So you can see clearly the lateral sway here. So I have to stop myself and then a big move forward, but watch the action of the arms. So I don't even know. What are you thinking here? Do you remember?
Um, Dear Lord, I'm tired of striking out. I will say my sophomore year, I think most of my home runs were that pitch right there. I gained, I think, about 25-ish pounds between and I just swung at pitches at my head and could kind of muscle them out. And I guess without knowing, I had the barrel action that was good enough to get them there. But yeah, that really was my sophomore year in that video right there.
I didn't put your FIU one on here. At least
No,
not the live version. Oh, that's too bad. I thought I put that on her. That's okay. All right,
oh,
let's move on. So here's a cage video from the sophomore year. So again, lateral sway, the toe tap. Watch the action of the arms. I asked her about this, and she's like, all I told myself was to stay behind the ball, which I'm going to show you some stuff later as far as from our biomechanics lab. But Bailee holds a lot of energy in her torso really, really well, which I've come to find that people that do that really well really hit. Like they just have barrel to ball skills. So you can see like the action of the upper body here is actually really, really good without her really knowing. And she told me she just tried to stay behind the ball. The action of the upper body in these videos really well, but the core ability of the lower half is just to be able to time. Wasn't able to consistently do this a lot. And again, 11 home run, 297 with 11 is nothing to sneeze at. Like a lot of players would take that, but that's 297 with 11 without really the ability to time, which you're going to start to see a little bit later. So Bailee, I think that's all I have. Why did I not put that on here? It's all right.
It's right there, right to the left of it. I mean, that's a comparison.
But... Oh, no, the comparison. I'll show that one later. So, okay. 297, 11, you know, you're kind of, I guess you, like you said, needle in the haystack on a couple of them. Yeah. So talk about your sophomore year a little bit, the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like I said before, got a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, cleaned up some things that I didn't really even mean to, because my biggest focus was like my sophomore year, I lunged at the ball. I mean, my freshman year, I lunged at the ball really bad, like really bad. And that was just a lack of confidence. And so my biggest thing was working on that confidence and working on staying back, like I said, whatever that means. And so that, you know, getting stronger, getting a little bit bigger, swinging at pitches I probably shouldn't have been swinging at, but they were doing me favors, so I just kept swinging at them. That's really the biggest difference in what it was I was a sophomore, so I had a little experience, so I was a little more confident, a little more had a little more understanding of what I was going into in season. Swinging at pitches I knew I could hit out if I, you know, hit them right. And yeah, that's really it. Nothing really that special, just kind of a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill.
Okay, so now you're going into the summertime and going into the fall. What was the focus then?
Really the same thing. That year obviously was a lot better than my freshman year, and I wanted to ride that. I wanted to keep getting better, so my mindset was, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing, right? I'm going to keep working hard. I'm going to keep going to the cage. I'm going to keep doing the drills I was doing because I obviously saw an improvement, and really just making sure that, you know, mentally I wasn't getting myself down. And so I didn't really change much going to the fall. I think the biggest thing was just like, okay, cool, I'm an upperclassman now. I have a little more experience. I actually came off a good year, you know, second team all conference. That gave me a little confidence boost, and therefore going into junior year, it was just a little bit more of the same. It was just a little bit of luck, and now kind of had the headspace to be in that spot and all. And so, yeah.
All right. So now we get to the fun part. the interesting part. So I didn't take the job at UTSA until December of her junior year. So they had already played fall. I had already done all that stuff. And I actually did not show up to campus until they were already practicing. So my first, like, I think they had like 2 days worth of practice, 1 or 2 days worth of spring practice they had already started before I even showed up on campus. The first day that I showed up to practice, I couldn't actually do anything because I had not gone through all my HR paperwork, but I drove out and went out to practice. So drove out to practice. I pull up in the parking lot and Bailee's coming out of the locker room. And if any of you out in here that know me, you know me, I'm kind of loud, I'm kind of bold, like whatever. And so I get out of the car, I says, "Hey, who are you?" She just kind of looks at me like, "Who is this guy?" She's
I was
like,
kind of scared.
and I go, she goes, "I'm Bailee." I was like, "You know who I am?" She kind of looks at me, she says, "Oh," she says, "You're the new coach." I says, "Yeah, I am." I says, "Listen," I said, "I know you don't know me, but I said, if you hit the ball on the ground today in practice, we're gonna run poles." She kind of like looks at me like, "What in the world?" So she's like, "Okay." So, and I was only kidding, but we went out. So we went out to the field, and I'm sitting on the fence line, and they're taking BP, and I'm just kind of watching them, and they're all swaying, they're all shifting, and whatever. And she comes up, and she's got the same kind of pattern that she's using now, and but she proceeds to hit a handful of balls off the middle of her net at our field. She hits a couple balls in the oak trees, and I'm like, okay, like this might be it. So she walks over. She walks over to me, walks past me, and I says, "Hey, listen." I says, "I just got here." I said, "I don't know you, and you don't know me." I said, "We're gonna have to get to know each other really fast." I says, "But if you can get what I'm gonna ask you to do, and you get off to a good start, so you can hit 20 home runs." And she gives me the absolute death stare look. I ain't never hit that many before in my life. And I said, "Listen, I don't care what you've done before I got here." I was like, "That doesn't matter." She's like, "Yo, okay." So that was the end. That was the end of that. So we go down, end up being able to go to practice the next day. And we go down to the cage. And, I'm sitting there and just kind of watching, not really saying anything. So she very defiantly looks at me and goes, "Okay, how do I hit 20 home runs?" I'm like, this kid doesn't want to learn. She's trying to show me up here. So I said, "Okay." I said, "This is what I want you to do." I said, "I want you to cross your feet." I said, "I want you to figure out how to hit the ball." She's like, "What?" So just cross your feet. I was like, I want you to get your back hip to move like your leg and everything forward and figure out how to hit the ball. So she starts trying to do it. And as you can see, like she had a really stiff upper body. So like the timing of the hands, like it was not working. And so she's slicing balls and flaring balls. And she's looking at me. She's like, "This is dumb." I'm like, "Okay." It's like, I mean, again, like there's a lot of dynamics here in play. Like they're 3 weeks from getting ready to play. And, I've come out and said, 20 home runs in our game is a big number. You start throwing around things like that, people kind of start looking like, "What are you talking about?" And so she's like, "This is dumb." I was like, "All right, well, you don't have to do it, but I'm just telling you, if you can get it, like you'll hit 20 home runs." So unbeknownst to me, like, again, like I hardly know her, she goes and she's like, "All right, what else do I have to do?" And I explained a few more things to her. But so she goes and fact checks me, goes and looks at all the stuff. And she comes back a couple days later while we're doing pictures. She says, "Hey," I can't figure out like how to hinge like in my swing, like in my start. She's like, "But I already start, like I'm used to starting kind of bent over." She's like, "Can I do that?" I says, "You want to preset your hips?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, you can do that." She says, "What do I do from there?" I said, "Well, I don't really care." I was like, "You got to figure out how to get your hips to move forward and your upper body to stay back." She's like, "All right." So Bailee, talk a little bit about those first maybe 10 days or so of when I showed up.
Yeah. So, what I will say to start off is that, I talked about before, I spent a lot of time really wanting like someone to come in and be like, "Here's the answer," right? And so I have this from him, but like if y'all know Carlton, like he gives attitude, you give attitude back. I picked that up real fast. So that's just how we were. So I'm not crazy like that, but that you just got to give it back to him. But so for years, I've been like, I want someone to come in here and just tell me what to do, because before I was told to put balls on the tee and hit them on the ground the other way, and that just wasn't going to work for me. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm diving in, I'm going to honestly blindly follow what this guy says. And I knew, like, for better or worse, that was what was going to happen. Like, whatever he said I was going to do, I was going to take as Bible, and I was going to do it. And whether that is a character flaw, whether that was something I should or shouldn't have done, I don't regret it. I don't think a lot of kids would be that way, but I was so desperate for it that I just said, whatever, he could completely ruin my swing. I don't care at this point. This is, I want it, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to blindly follow it, and I'm going to take it. And so I did. And I mentioned before, like, I won't shy away from it. Like, I worked really hard for it, but I also had some of the tools. So I had a full-length mirror in my apartment, in my bedroom. And every night I took a bat home. As soon as he got there, like the second or third day, I took an old bat home from the cage, and I got in front of that mirror, and I just tried to do what he said. And he had me, like, standing on a piece of paper trying to get it to go one way, and, like, just all this stuff. And I was just in the mirror watching it, seeing what I could do, seeing how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed to feel. And that's just the kind of player I was. And so I was doing that, staying after practice, going before practice, doing whatever I could do to get ready, because I very quickly saw a change in my swing that I liked. And I very quickly wanted more, I guess you could say. And I think that's a combination of, I had some things going, and so it was a little bit easier to get it in place. I wanted the change. I craved the change. And I'm just the kind of player who's like, all right, what coach says, I do. And whether, like I said, whether that's the right thing to do, I don't know, but that's what I did. And I just dedicated myself to it. I worked my butt off for it, because we had 2-3 weeks till season, and I was going to make it count. And I remember in my meeting with Coach Cheatham after my sophomore year, she was like, well, you had a really good year. I don't want you to, like, panic and, worry about, like, failing this next year. Like, it's hard to come off a good year and do another year. And I remember leaving that meeting being like, that wasn't good. Like, I'm not even close to where I'm going to be. Like, I just remember thinking that, and I guess maybe I knew that something was coming my way, but it really was just, I just put in the time, I put in the effort, and I did my best to understand what I was learning. And I gave myself 100% to it from that first day and didn't look back.
All right, so let's get into some of the fun video. So we're about maybe 9 days in. And the reason why I don't have a lot of her early stuff when we first started, because I was just trying to get something in place to where we could kind of get people going in the right direction. But I do have these couple ones. Where is it? All right. So this is about 10 or 11 days in after I first showed up. This is the one video I took from her from behind in the cage. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about what she's trying to do. So she literally, the one thing she could do almost from the very beginning was crossing her feet. The problem is being able to take that and start to put it into what you already are kind of doing, or if you're just like, all right, I can't do it, like, I'm just going to change the whole thing, which Bailee actually at the end makes a complete style change, which I'll go over that a little bit later as it got cleaner. But right now, as you can see, so still the same setup with the lower half. Leg still preset. The lateral sway is not as bad as it was during the toe tap. What you also are starting to see is the hands trying to pump a little bit. Again, this is like 10 days in, and what she's trying to figure out right now is, how do I get to this position right here without my feet being crossed? Now, I did not give her very many cues. Again, we had like 3 or 4 weeks before we were going to play, so you can't go in. I couldn't go in at that time and just cue salad everybody. Like, I mean, it would have been really, really bad. So it was literally, try this. This is what you're trying to feel. See if you can put it into your swing pattern. And so as you can see, again, there's starting to be some action with the hands and some things, you can see some things starting to kind of happen. And like I said, this was about 11 days in. And it was at this point that I thought that she might get it before the season started. Before this day, I didn't think anybody was going to get it before the season started. I was like, it's not going to be close. It was very interesting, the conversation I had the first day with Coach Cheatham, who's on here. She said, I asked her, I said, do you want me to do this? And she's like, well, how long will it take? I says, I don't know. She said, give me best case, worst case. I said, okay. I said, best case, a couple of them pick it up by the time we get to conference play, which would have given us about, 2.5 months. I said, and they carry it through the rest of the year. I says, worst case, nobody get it, so we don't hit and we don't win. I says, that's your scenario. I says, absolute best case, somebody picks it up before the season starts. I said, but I don't think that's going to happen because I was the only person in the room that had any idea what I was talking about. That's what makes the next couple of videos that you're going to see really dramatic. And she gave me the green light. She said, okay. She's like, they'll figure it out. I said, all right. So the first day I'm standing in there and Bailee will tell you this because the whole team was in there because it was raining. I'll never forget this. I was standing there. I said, okay. I said, how many of you have heard, turn the barrel, pivot the barrel, get the barrel to work around your hands, make the back the front, all these cues that I was just kind of just showing the hand pivot and nobody raises their hand. They're all looking at me like, what are you talking about? I said, okay. I said, all right, well, how many of you have been told, knob to the ball, pull your hands inside of the ball, stay short, hit the ball the other way, inside out balls, those things. And all 20 something of them, everybody raises their hand. And I look at Cheatham and are you sure? She's like, yep. I said, okay. I says, all right, well, we're not going to do that anymore. They're like, well, what are we going to do? I says, we're not going to do that. They literally, their first day, they did a drill that they called pushing that was on the tee. It was literally that you stood there in front of the tee, and you went straight to extension. And I was like, what are y'all doing? And they go, pushing. I go, what? They go, the name of the drill is pushing. I says, we'll never do that again, ever. I said, this will be the first day and the last day. So, moving on.
I was so annoyed at that point.
What'd you say now?
I was really annoyed at that point. I was in there doing my everyday warm up and I was doing that and I felt really good about it. And then you were like, don't do that. And I was like, who are you to tell me that?
So what I did we didn't take BP outside until the week before we played, because what was happening was a lot of the kids, and our cages are kind of short. So a lot of the kids were hitting balls off the roof of the cage anywhere between 14 and 18 feet. And depending on your cage height, that's about optimal. That's a really good range. If you're hitting it hard, it's about the range that you want to hit it in. So a lot of our kids were hitting the ball at the part of the top of the cage. And every time they do it, Coach Carlton, it's a pop-up. Coach Carlton, it's a pop-up. Coach Carlton, why are you making me hit pop-ups? And I'm like, dude, that's not a pop-up. That's 3/4 of the way up the net at our field. So I kept them inside for that time because I didn't want them because some of them were pop-ups. So some of them were missing under really, really bad, or they were too steep and cutting balls and overspinning them. That was happening some. So what I didn't want to happen was for every ball we went outside and hit well, they would overspin a ball and say, see, coach, that's fly out. You're just teaching me to pop up balls. And that would have probably killed any type of momentum that I was trying to create going into the season. So we stayed in the cage. So this video right here was a Saturday. It was the first day that we hit outside, about 3 weeks, right at the 3-week point into the season. All right, Bailee, tell me about this video. I know what I'm going to say, but you tell me about this video.
It was cool. It was for the first time, I was in complete control of what was going on. I like felt good. It's kind of hard to explain, but like I think a lot of times, before all of this happened with me, you go into BP and it's almost just like you're hoping to not fail, at least for me. I was like, man, like I don't know what I'm gonna have today. I don't know if I'm gonna even be able to hit it. Like, you just don't know what's gonna show up that day because I didn't have something that was consistent. I didn't have something that I knew what was really going on with my swing. I was just kind of hoping to make contact and hoping that I was doing things, the right way. And so this was really cool because I felt very in control of my body. I felt very in control of where the ball was going. I felt really good about it. And I felt for the first time, like that true, like I can hit. And that's something I can do. I can hit the ball. I can hit it consistently well. And this is something that I've always been told I can do, but I never could actually do it until now. So I think that was the biggest takeaway from this day was it just felt really good for that reason.
So let's talk about it a little bit. So as you remember from the first video, this was after we had the conversation about presetting the back hip, and she started to understand, like, from a preset back hip position, I can go straight to my move. So as you can see, like in this video, there's no longer any more backslay. Like it's up and now things can get going forward. You also can start to see now action that's going on with the barrel. Now this is really, really crude. Again, it'll get a lot cleaner, but you can see some of the timing starting to happen with the barrel. I also like this part. I get it started back. You can see her after this swing. Try to turn from the middle and resist. This move right here. Trying to figure out how to feel the middle go and the upper body kind of fold back behind yourself. Also can see some of the hands starting to pop up some on the turn. And some things start to happen. So that's where we are after about 3 weeks. So again, hardly any time to hear something that you've never heard before. After this day, I had actually not known much about her doing the mirror stuff. After that day, she would religiously send me things in the mirror. Is this right? What about this? What about that? And that day when we were outside, I told Cheatham, I said, she's going to get it. Now, I don't know what kind of numbers are going to happen. It'll probably get better as the season goes on. I says, but she's going to get it at some point. I said, and it's going to be really, really special. Now, what I didn't know that it was going to take her all of one game to get it and then carry that through the length of the year, but that's what ends up happening. So, Bailee, talk a little bit about, that day, and then we had about another week, or so, and then we get ready to open the season. Talk about that a little bit.
I mean, really it was just at that point I was like, okay, I felt like I was going to get some helpful information. I did. I now have it. Well, I'm just going to keep continuing on with it. So I was just going to put my head down, like I said, keep working hard, keep trying to get ready for season, and kind of just be ready for that first game. So it was just more of the same, more of, working in the mirror, like you said, more of doing all that. So at that point, there was no doubt in my mind that I was just going to keep trying to figure this out, because I had like evidence of what I've always been told that I could do. And I think even a part of me knew that I was just going to keep getting better at it. But really my biggest thing was just going to keep working. I'm just going to keep going. And I really can't give a reason why I did that. It was just, I was just going to do it, and something told me to just take it and run. And so I did.
All right. You remember this day? Remember this day?
Yeah.
So I know it's really grainy. It was really, really bad video, but I was actually able to find it. So this was the first day of like pods, like inter squad, like maybe 3 or 4 days before the first game. So you can see like the actions are even cleaner now at this point than they were during batting practice. So as you remember from like the other video she had, really trying to put the foot down the time. And you can see now, look where the leg gets to compared to when the pitcher has the ball, which I'll talk about this conversation a little bit later we had. But look where the leg gets to and the body gets to in relationship to where the pitcher now has the ball. So now as she moves forward, I have all this time to be able to read speed, spin, and location. I think this day, I want to say she hit 3 homers, like 2 double, like it was ridiculous. And I think this was really the day, because it was like the last day alive, that she really started to believe in what I was trying to get her to do. You remember that?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm just like giddy. Like, I'm just like, oh man, like I'm about to hit. And really, that was it. I think, and what's cool about that day is I think that was the first day that I really was like, oh man, like I can hit an outside pitch, because I don't remember if it was you or Coach Cheatham, but we were watching the video and one of y'all was like, oh, like, did you want to hit an outside pitch? Because at that point we had kind of started to talk about approach a little bit, and I was like, I mean, no, not really, but it was outside. Like I didn't really know, but I could kind of tell, and then I could really just hit an outside pitch at that point, and that was really cool because it wasn't even intentional, but I mean, obviously that's a little bit of foreshadowing for the season, which we'll talk about. But yeah, it was a cool day for that reason.
So we opening game. First day of the year. Just watch this.
Here's a 1-1. High fly ball, pretty well hit, left field, way back. UTSA leads 1-0.
Bailee Baldwin.
2-2. Here's the pitch. There's a well-hit ball to center field. Back, and 2 home runs for the day for Bailee Baldwin.
So before we talk about emotional stuff, let's just watch what's starting to happen. So as you can see in the preset tempo and rhythm, the barrel's starting to get some life in it. And again, as you saw in some of the other videos, when the pitcher starts to make their move, she's starting to make her move. So what it is, it's just giving her a lot more time, regardless of the aesthetic.
Here's the bat.
So after Bailee hits the second home run, she comes back she passes by me in the dugout. I stand kind of on the edge. And she's looking at me with this weird, like, deer, not deer in the headlight, but just kind of questioning look. She kind of walks past me. She puts her stuff up. She comes back to me. She goes, okay, what did you do? And I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, what did you do? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, what did you give me? I was like, I didn't give you anything. Like, just keep playing. Well, she ends up getting intentionally walked the next 2 times. And so after the game, after a meeting, I call her over. I said, do you want to know what I gave you? She says, yes. I said, I gave you the ability to time. I says, all I've done is giving you a chance to actually time, consistently get to a good spot to where now, like, you can make good decisions. She's like, you gave me power. I was like, no. I was like, that's always been there. I said, I can't give you that. I says, but what I can give you is a chance to understand what you're trying to do and consistently get good swings off and consistently make good decisions on balls to swing at. So Bailee, tell them a little bit about that game and that conversation.
Yeah, so the first one, it kind of feels lucky. Like I told him, it was like I hit it hard, but it wasn't like I smashed it. I kind of cut it a little bit, came off of it, kind of just snuck it over the fence. It was really that second pitch, that second at bat, I would say, because that was actually a changeup. And if anybody has ever watched me play, like, if you want to get me out, your best chance is a changeup. And that's just how it's always been, for a lack of timing, and just at this point, it's just a hard pitch to hit. But I hit it, and I hit it really well. Actually, Jay, well, I know you're on here. I remember you yelling at me to run, but I knew it was going over, so I wasn't running. But that second at bat was really where it was really special, because I hit a changeup. I hit it well. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but I did get fooled. But what's really cool about it was I was able to adjust to that, which is something I've never been able to do before. And I know Carlton will talk about that a little bit, or has in the past. But I was fooled on the changeup, and I was still could sink and hit it, and hit it well, obviously. So that was really cool. And I actually, the rest of the tournament, I did really bad. I think I had like one more hit the rest of the tournament because I psyched myself out. And I was just like I don't know. I just freaked out, and I was just so confused, and I just was like, well, I can't do that again. Like that, now that's the expectation. And I just, y'all know how it is. I just completely freaked out, got in my own head, and I struggled really bad the rest of the tournament, just mentally, not physically, but mentally. I struggled really bad because of it.
So we went back to work the next week. I mean, no big deal. So she hits 2 in that first game of the tournament, and so we go back to work the next week. And at this point, like, things are going to still be cleaning up, but we're playing games. So we're more concentrated on, what the pitcher's going to do, like probably how you're going to get pitched and all those things. So here is the next weekend. This is the second game. So the next weekend she goes out. She hits 2 against Prairie View and hits 3 against Prairie View, actually. Here is the Grand Slam. It's actually in slow-mo. And I'm looking at the wrong page.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
The Grand Slam, I didn't have a Grand Slam against Prairie View.
You did. The one you walked the ball on.
That's Celeste.
You sure about that?
Yeah, Celeste hit a Grand Slam. Look, there's nobody on first.
You're right. Just kidding. So this one's in slow-mo. This is one she hit out against Prairie View. So the thing that you're going to be able to see really, really well from this video is, if you remember, I talked about her upper body being able to delay and do some things really well, but the lower body's inability to consistently get her on time. Well, now we're starting to get the lower body can consistently time. So these great actions that are going on up here are now going to be amplified, which you're going to see right here. So I'll play at full speed 1 and then we'll look at it. So let's look at it. So watch as I call it, well, it is the middle of the body. The middle of the body. Pause. There we go. The middle of the body. This part right here by the bird head. Watch what starts to happen. As it starts to open, look what the arms start to do. You can see the arms delay and pop up. People talk about turn the triangle, all those things. You can see the front arms getting forward as the barrel starts to turn. So now you get the quote unquote hit it out of the catcher's mitt. All those things start to happen now. Now, balls that were up in the zone that she would sometimes hit out, sometimes miss, now those balls aren't being missed anymore. So we go through 2, 4, 5. So we go through the first tournament, the first 2 tournaments. She got 5. We proceed to go to U of H and play in Houston, and she hits 2 more. So we're in the month of February, and I'll show you this. We're in the month of February, and these are the NCAA stats for home runs. You can see the date after the month of February. So, Bailee, when I sent you this, what did you think when I sent you this?
Cool. I mean, it wasn't really what I was worried about, I think. Because in my mind, it was like, I mean, Cheatham knows this, but in my mind, it's like there's always somewhere more to, like, room to improve. So obviously it was cool, it was exciting, but it was like, okay, I'm going to be happy for like a second, but I'm not going to stop working. So yeah, it was like a cool moment, but in the grand scheme of what was going on in my mindset, I was just more of like okay, I got to keep going. Just got to keep going. Like, just got to keep working, get back to the cage, fix whatever I was, struggling at this weekend. So I think the biggest thing in my junior year is I feel most of the time I just put my head down and tried to stay the course. I didn't want to get caught up in what was happening. Didn't want to get caught up in the stats or any of that. So it was definitely a cool moment, really exciting, something I'll always remember. But it was never something that I was like, okay, cool, like I've accomplished it. Like I'm here, I'm good. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep getting better.
So the next weekend we go to Lubbock. And I'll keep it short because I want to get to some of the rest of the stuff without keeping you all too long. But she hits 3 in 4 games in Lubbock. I don't have any video from Lubbock. Sorry. So she hits 3 in 4 games. So we're at 10. Do I not have the graph of 10? No, I don't.
Graph is right there.
This one.
Yes.
So after the first month and change of the year, this is where we are. So this was her player of the week that she won after that week. So Bailee, you hit 11 all of last year, and I think we were 12, 15 games in, you're at 10. Now what?
So Lubbock was a really special weekend because this is where kind of my approach came full circle. So before it was like I could kind of swing at a lot of things and get away with it. And I wasn't really thinking too much about what I wanted to hit and what count and all this kind of stuff. So the week before we go to Lubbock, he introduces the wall. And this is not to say like the wall is like some special, like gonna make it all click kind of thing for everybody else. But for me, it was that thing that put everything into place. It kind of, those last few pieces that I was missing really clicked. And like I said before, that first weekend, I hit that outside pitch, cut it a little bit, still came off of it. It was still kind of around balls a little bit. So I get to the week before Lubbock and he introduces the wall. And it just made so much sense to me, and it's why I could now hit an outside pitch. Like I had kind of gotten there better than I was before, because before I couldn't hit an outside pitch to save my life. But at this point with the wall, it just makes sense. And so the whole week going up until Lubbock, I'm using the wall. It's making sense. My swing is coming together. And this is where I start to figure out my approach, because my entire junior year, my approach rested on the fact that I knew I was going to get an outside pitch. It was just a matter of when and how many times. And I'm sure a lot of y'all know, like as a lefty, we get a lot of outside pitches, which is to me is a blessing, but before it wasn't. And so I just had to wait for it. That's all I was doing. I was waiting for that pitch to show up in that spot. And when it did, I wasn't going to miss. And that's what I went into Lubbock thinking. And the wall gave me that ability. It's hard to explain my approach, but it was almost like, and I know you can't actually do this, but it was almost like I could see a still of the ball on the plate where I wanted to make contact. And when it got there, that was when I would launch my swing. And that is how I went through Lubbock. And that is how I went through my junior year. And that is why I did so well. And I'm sure if we pulled up a spray chart of my junior year, I'm pretty sure probably like 14 of my 19 home runs were left field to left center, maybe even center, because of that week, because of the wall, and because it curated my approach for whatever reason, for whatever rhyme or reason. So now, before I had the physical skills, that wall really clicked those physical skills into place, and also gave me an approach, because at this point I'm like, I can bang an outside pitch consistently. It's easier to hit than an inside pitch. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to wait till the ball shows up there, whatever the pitcher wants to throw it. And when it goes there, I'm not going to miss. And that is how I went through Lubbock, especially. And that's what made Lubbock really click. So.
All right. So we're going to jump ahead just a little bit, because she's talked about it so much. I want to go ahead and show you guys what that looks like and some things. And then we'll backtrack and finish up her junior year, and we'll go into some other stuff. So the first wall I built was really, really crude. Like I just trying to throw something together, just trying to get the kids to get a feel. And it was way too tall. The first one was like came up to me. Like you can build it any height you want, but the first one came up to like my waist, which is way too tall. I'm 5'11". Most of my girls are anywhere between 5'5" and like 5'9". So it's coming up to like almost their belly button. So it didn't work super well. So Bailee was one that complained about it. She's like, it's too tall. I said, well, then go make your own. And she's like, well, what if I make it the wrong size? And I said, well, just kind of half-heartedly, I was like, well, just build it in the store. Like, nobody's going to say anything. And then, like, about an hour later that night, I get this picture from her. So this is Bailee at Home Depot with a wall built. Now, I just got to UTSA. So the first thing I'm thinking of, we have a kid in a Roadrunner softball shirt that's in there putting coupling and PVC together, and we're going to get in trouble. They're going to say there's a kid in here messing around with PVC pipe that hasn't paid for it, and it's going to come back on me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? She's like, well, you said build it in the store, make sure it works. I was like, dude, just make sure you pay for it. So that's her in Home Depot building the wall. So here is, if you happen to see any of the flow softball stuff that I've done, here's a slight demo and explanation of the wall. Okay, so I know I'll probably get this question about the wall. So the wall, it's actually called a hand block wall. So what the idea is it keeps the arms or the hands from plunging down towards the ball, and then you're trying to swing, get the barrel to show up. It also stops you from working across with the shoulders. So the barrel should work from behind and kind of travel along the length and then finish. It shouldn't start traveling and then cut across really fast. That means that you're pulling across with the shoulders. So that's a small explanation of the wall. And I'm gonna show you, again, this video is kind of cheating because Bailee's a senior at this point and things are really, really good, which you'll be able to see. But this is the wall from 45. So she's at 45 with the wall. And the thing that she wants, you know, kind of trying to explain to you guys that really, really helped her. So again, if I use the wall and I cut across balls, like there's no way for me to travel, the barrel to travel from behind and out through. So my direction gets really, really bad. So what she talks about when she used this is she's able to see like this area out here extremely, extremely well. And she understands how to work behind and out through this pitch. So as you can see, as I'll show you, and again, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but as you can see from this video, right here is the area that you want to look at. I'm being able to turn from the middle of the body and allow the arms to stay up by the shoulders. And now I turn the barrel towards contact. So you can see lead arm and barrel all in the same line, chest and head are behind the ball. And I continue on the same line. So you can see her head stays down as the body continues to rotate through the ball. Here's one more I'm going to show you with the wall. So here's her working. This was during the summertime after junior year. So she's working with it kind of from a normal setup. So she's feeling herself get to launch position right here. You can see the knees are bowed apart, you know, good tension created in the lower body, and understanding how to turn from the middle of the body and be able to work from behind and out through. So this ball is like down and away, so it looks like she's swinging straight up in the air, but relative to the pitch height or the pitch location that she has this ball set on, this is really, really good. So that's the wall. That's the explanation for the wall. So let's move on, okay? So now, you know, we're at 10. We're doing some things really well. Let's move on to, let's go to North Texas.
UTSA with the stolen base in this series so far. That was by Bailee Baldwin. Here's the pitch. High fly ball. That's well hit left center field. Bailee Baldwin with her.
So let's think about if the wall was sitting.
That was by Bailee Baldwin. Here's the pitch.
Let's think about if the wall was sitting up here, as she said, like if the wall was along the chalk line. You can see how well she works from behind and out through.
Bailee Baldwin. Here's the pitch. That was by Bailee Baldwin. Here's the pitch. High fly ball. That's well hit left center field. Bailee Baldwin with her 11th home run.
Let's move to the second game of that day.
Bailee Baldwin, the batter. Baldwin went 0 for 4 against Troutwine in game 1. She's 2 for 3. Correction, 3 for 3 in this game, including a 2-run home run. Troutwine, the new pitcher. First pitch to Baldwin. Fly ball, left center field, well hit. And Baldwin did it. Grand slam, home run, Bailee Baldwin.
So that was the day against North Texas. Let's move along. Let's go to Texas State. You haven't seen this one, have you?
Mm-mm.
So this is Texas State. Later on in the year, I think this is like number 18 or so.
Yeah.
So again, 17?
I think so.
Okay. So again, without getting to the aesthetics until a little bit later, the big thing, up early. I got plenty of time to see it. So again, let's imagine if the quote unquote wall was sitting along the inside corner. Look at this pitch location and look how well Everyone talks about you got to get depth. Well, yeah, I got to get depth, but at the same time, I got to get it out front. So I just don't get depth and hit the ball behind me. Yeah, I work from behind, but I got to get the barrel forward, and I play at full speed. I mean, that happened right there. Happened quite a bit. I've got one more. Do I want to play one more? Yes, I do want to play one more. So this is the last one I'm going to show from her junior year. So let's look at this is against Marshall. So she talked about changeups being her nemesis. This isn't a changeup, but this is like an off-speed curve. So if you treat it like a changeup as a hitter, you'll watch her hold in the middle and then be able to go late.
Here's a 1-2 pitch.
Watch it again.
Here's a 1-2 pitch.
You can see the tempo, as you can see, like the flow and the rhythm of the barrel tip and the life of the barrel is a lot cleaner. This is towards the end of the year where she started to get really, really comfortable. And you can see again, up early and able to hold. So I can read it, hold, and then be able to go late and stay through my line, stay through the line, and drive this ball out. This tied the game, and then I think the next one won it, maybe. Somebody else won it. So that's, in a nutshell, that's her junior year. So Bailee, talk a little bit about, I'll show this one. This is a video. So talk a little bit about, so we end the year, we hit 360 with 11 and 19. You know, after a whirlwind type of information being thrown at you and a whole bunch of different things. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the thing that I did really well my junior year was I took the preseason and I grinded it out and I worked hard and I did all that stuff that we talked about. And then, you know, you get into the season. Obviously, like, you're working on stuff. You're, like you said, your work in season looks a little different than out of season because you are you kind of have to be in that game mode. You can't make all these big changes. So I think the thing I did really well was leave the physical stuff in practice and kept the mental stuff in the game. So I talked about at Texas Tech, that's when I curated my approach. That's when I knew what I wanted to do and I was confident in it. And when I got into games, I wasn't worried about this or that. And I tell Carlton, it's like, I think I figured it out physically before I knew mentally what I was doing. So I knew I was doing things well. I knew my swing was better. I knew I had this cool leg kick that I didn't have before. But really, in the grand scheme of things, I didn't know that much about what I was doing. I knew enough to like make corrections and understand what he was saying. But it wasn't like I could sit there and have a knowledgeable conversation with Carlton or with anybody else. So I think that kind of helped me in a way because I could just focus on my approach. And if I had an issue, I could trust Carlton. And if he said, don't worry about it or do this. So it's almost like I left that up to him, and the mental stuff is what I worked on. So I kind of just coasted through the rest of the season on that, knowing what pitch I wanted to hit, kind of learning how to make adjustments based on pitchers, because Marshall, she had 3 speeds, and that was really tough for us because that's when I learned to commit to a speed. He was like, you have to load for the changeup, you have to load for the off speed, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to hit all of them. You just can't do that. And that's when I really that one where I paused, kind of where I paused in my swing a little bit and I kind of hold the ground. That one is when I really committed to that. And that's just a part of me going through my mental process and adding to it, but still holding on to like what pitches I wanted to hit and just making those adjustments based on pitchers and that kind of stuff. So the hard part was in the beginning, the tournaments, all that kind of stuff. But really after that, it was just about keeping it and working at it still and keeping that mental approach and not getting outside of that.
Okay. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit. I want to talk about, as much as, Bailee had a big year and things of that, our program here at UTSA started to make a shift kind of at this point after this year. I had these ideas about the swing, what I thought the swing was. I thought I could teach it pretty well. but my ability to communicate it was very, very at its infancy. It was very much buzzwords. It was very much like the way that I could understand it, but it wasn't anatomically or physiologically really correct. So I had a tough time like communicating with our support staff on some of the things that I wanted to implement because I had personally not learned enough and I couldn't speak their language very well. So I committed that summer to understanding how to speak their language better. And in turn, like a lot of the buzzwords and stuff that I use, like I'm sure she could probably come up with some that I don't even use anymore because it's like that was not a good way to say it because anatomically, like, while, yeah, it made sense in my mind, anatomically, like your body doesn't do that. So I can't use that anymore. So based on that, we changed the next year was we began to change and implement a lot of things as far as strength and conditioning, as far as some corrective things. So Bailee happened to be in, and I know if some of you have seen my Flow Softball series that I did, you've seen all the cage stuff. Well, the part that they haven't released yet was the weight room stuff, which you're going to see my GoPro video that I had going live at that time. This is the segment that we did from Flow Softball in the weight room. If you turn your volume up, you'll be able to hear Lexi, who was our strength coach at the time, explain the exercises. Bailee's going to be the one demoing. That's why we're showing them. So we're going to go through a little bit of that portion right here. So this is, if you look through, here we go. So here's the explanation for it. You can go ahead and go through, as you can see my camera kind of pan and just kind of read what we were doing. I'll play it twice so you can see it twice.
So she's speaking like solo for a minute, right?
And she's going to explain the exercises and all that stuff. So I'll play it one more time so you can kind of read it.
So she's speaking like solo for a minute, right?
And she's going to explain the exercises and all that stuff. So that's kind of the program that we changed and did in the weight room. So here is pelvic tuck band with the mini bands from both sides. Turn your volume up so you can hear it.
So we're going to start by demoing one exercise called a mini band pelvic tuck. So Bailee's going to take the band, put it above her knees, and then sink down in a good athletic position. And the only thing she's working on doing here is tilting the front of her pelvis up and then resetting back to a neutral.
So pelvic control is something that's really, really important. Being able to anterior and posteriorly tilt. A lot of people just don't have a lot of pelvic control, which impedes their ability to hinge, which causes a lot of the lateral sway. So one thing that we did with the pelvic tuck is being able to keep the knees apart so I can feel the resistance while at the same time be able to control my pelvis on my own.
Really had no idea how to even control the movements of their pelvis. This was a foreign movement for them, which it seems like it's really simple exercise, just tilting the front of your pelvis up, but to have zero control or even awareness, body awareness that your pelvis can move forward and back and not constantly in this anteriorly rotated state, being able to find your neutral position and then also tilt forward a little bit. This was a really good drill that we started to incorporate, and we also started doing some shifts in the pelvis from one side to the next. And Weldon can explain that a little more. He's talking about with the one move and tilting the pelvis in different directions. So really just bring some body awareness and some body control into the
So now that was front to back. Now Bailee's gonna demo side to side. You want to be able to do this without hiking your hips up in the air. You want them to stay at the same level.
Here she's just tucking her pelvis up, and then she'll rotate to one side. So she'll tuck up, and then she'll rotate her entire pelvis. So tucking up, and then rotate from one side to the next. And so we're training both sides also, not just their.
So I don't know if you can notice this a little bit because Bailee's wearing black pants. But Bailee has a hard time rotating to the right. Now, granted, she's left-handed, so you may say, well, that's no big deal. But that's actually some of the reason why Bailee had the preset. Bailee had a back injury when she was younger. So it led to some tightening down on her lumbar spine, which actually led to her getting to the preset position. Why being able to do some assessments are really, really important. All right, so here is PVC step up, which the idea, well,
Okay, so this drill is a PVC step up and rotate. So she's gonna work on, again, separating the shoulders from the hips when moving. So she's gonna step up onto the box, drive her opposite knee up, and then rotate towards that standing leg or the elevated leg, and then come back down with control. So here we're trying to get her to utilize, again, thoracic mobility, being able to move through the upper to mid back towards that leg that's blocking her hip from rotating. So it should just be the shoulders, the upper body rotating.
A lot of times you see that players are not able to step up. It's associated with step up, and then as they start to turn, the whole body to try to swing around with them. They're not able to keep the leg that's up blocked and be able to rotate.
That's the most important part here is making sure they rotate towards the leg that's up and not away from that leg. So again, Bailee rotates, her hips stay stable while her upper body is able to rotate.
So this was good. This was something that's good for now. You can do this with a PVC pipe. Like at this point, we did it with a PVC pipe. Now we do it with the actual barbell. So like our kids will put the barbell all the way across their shoulders and do the same exact exercise to add a little bit more weight, a little bit more instability. But the reason why this was incorporated at this time was a lot of our girls, when they didn't understand the difference between turning from the middle versus turning everywhere else. So when we would get in the cage, it would be a move where they would swing with everything, or they would turn from their hips, and then the shoulders would fly off. Then, you know, your head flies off and you hook balls and miss balls. So that's the one reason why we added this, so they could understand how to keep the hips blocked and turn from something other than their hips. Here is, what's the name of this one? Oh, I'll let Lex explain this one.
Doing a side plank clamshell, so she's gonna bridge up into a side plank on her forearm while abducting into a clamshell at the same time. She's activating her hips and her glutes in a clamshell, and then also a lot of anti-rotation being in the side plank position. Not to mention coordination, overall body stability.
So I'll pause this for a second in case you couldn't hear. Like, so this is side plank clamshells. So what you do is, this is for abduction and adduction for the knee, for your knee and your growing area. So a lot of kids, when they go to move out in their swing, it's called valgus of the knee, or the knee collapses way down inside of the body. You're unable to keep tension that way running up through your body towards your pelvis. So then if my knee collapses down inside, my chest in turn will collapse down inside, and then the arms get forward too soon, and then it's a chain reaction of things that aren't good. So being able to ability to side plank, so I got a side plank and then I got to active. So then I have to activate my core to be able to hold stability. And then I've got to be able to abduct. I got to be able to open up my growing at the same time, keeping my stability. So we're conquering kind of two things here with core stability and being able to get our abduction and adduction strengthened.
And starting with the hips down on the ground, she bridges up into a side plank. As she bridges up, she abducts out against the band, driving the hips open, activating her hips.
She was was actually sweating during this, and we only did like 5 reps. So that's clamshells. The last one I'll show you here. This is windshield wipers.
Okay, so these line windmills plus internal rotation, the drill to help keep the scap to rotate properly. So she's taking it all the way overhead. She should be rotating up and then right back down. Once she gets to parallel here, she's gonna flip her palm down and then internally rotate. So she's trying to keep both shoulder blades pressed into the ground for as long as she can and internally rotate as much as she can before coming all the way back.
So if you couldn't hear Lexi there, what this is, what one of this exercise here does. So a lot of kids don't understand how to get their scap to work on its own, scap and their lat to work on its own. So you start doing any type of special shoulder exercise with them, or upper back exercise, and they want to use their shoulder, like they pick their shoulder up off the ground. Well, this isn't a shoulder move. The swing doesn't happen in the shoulders. The swing happens under the shoulders. A lot of kids don't have, at the beginning, usually the motor control or the motor function to understand how to move the muscles that are underneath the shoulder, because the shoulders are the biggest muscle in the upper body. So because it's the biggest, that's the first thing that I'm probably going to move. But we know in the swing, like, we don't want the shoulders to move, because if the shoulders are moved, we're probably coming off the ball really, really poorly. So this exercise is teaching her some scap mobility and also some scap control.
So again, we're working on a lot of thoracic mobility, a lot of shoulder mobility here, opening up the chest, being able to hug those shoulder blades down to the ground as she opens up and then internally rotates. So the knees being up at hip height, again, is blocking off any hip movement, and all the movement is coming from her upper back, upper to mid back, or thoracic right here, and then from the shoulder.
So that's some of the things we did in the weight room. So Bailee, talk about when we started to implement some of these things. How well did it coincide with some of the same things that I was saying in the cage?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it would clarify some things that maybe we didn't understand, like that you were asking us to do. Probably for others more than myself, but there was, I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly what, but there were some exercises that I was like, okay, I see like where that goes with that one. That makes sense. That's what he's asking me to do. I think the biggest one for me would probably be like the pelvic tucks. That's something I had to do with my back injury, but doing them like that, it made it make more sense for the hinge, because I think you could probably agree, like my biggest issue that I had was coming out of my hinge too early, because it got hard for me to hold it. Because of my back and my core could get really weak sometimes. So I think that helped a lot with that and being able to hold it through the swing. So just like things like that, like it just kind of translating or clarifying, or because sometimes you never know what's going to click with someone. So maybe doing it in the weight room makes it make more sense. Doing it a different way, having Coach B explain it, having someone else explain it makes it a little more clear than something else.
So those are some of the, at that time, we still do some variations of that. We have a new strength coach now that we still do a lot of variations of that. he's got some things that he makes them a little bit more difficult. I didn't put any of that stuff on there because we're not focusing like on our team and program, but I wanted to show some of the things that we started to incorporate and understand how it correlates to body movement and how you can clear some things up and or make a lot of adjustments if you add that piece into it, and not just I'm so worried about like my swing. Like if I just deadlift better, I probably start to hinge better. I start to understand how to time better, and I can kill two birds with one stone versus, never really understanding how to do that. And I'm just always worried about my swing. So now we're going to go into your senior year. We're going to go through this pretty quickly because I want to get to questions. But this is the point I'm going to kind of start to talk about what she's actually doing in her pattern. I haven't discussed that yet. I was holding it to this point. So I'm going to jump right to the spring of her senior year. Here is an inner squat swing. So Jordan said ooh a lot. I know she's on here. She said that a lot during the springtime. So let's go to the slow-mo of this video. So I'm gonna explain to you guys what's actually going on here in case you're kind of confused. So Bailee made a whole style change. She went from the toe tap deal to she scrapped that and went to like a leg kick and a big barrel tip. All during her junior year, like I heard it from everybody, like, dude, her hand, like she's dropping her hands are too low, she'll never hit. And I'm like, no, like that's what you see, but that's not what's happening. So although like her move looks really, really complex, it's actually very, very simple when you look under a hood. So what's happening here? So as you can see, Bailee's already preset. So as you can see, she's even got she's even got the weight almost rolled onto the heel, and the toe is almost off the ground at this point. But you can see how the back leg is already really, really tense. Okay, so when I preset my hip, like there's not going to be any type of hinge type move. There should obviously be no lateral sway, but in this position, this person's first move is going to be forward. Now, we don't want it to be a shift forward. Like I don't want to jump forward. Like I want the hip to move me forward. But this person in this type of setup, their move's going to be forward almost immediately. Now, because of that, you have to have something in the upper body that's going to balance that out. Because if I just go forward and my hands stay here, I will never get back into a position to hit. So for Bailee, what she ended up picking was this, what some people would call a massive leg lift. But if you just look at it, you're like, dude, that's way too high. Like it's almost up by her kneecap. But again, let's look under the hood. So as the leg comes up, the hands pump. So you may think, oh, you can't hit like that, like you're out of balance. But actually, that is a position of balance. The hip is inside of the knee, which is inside of the foot. She is stable here on one leg, and the hands work down as the same position as the leg. So this move is in sync. So this big action that like you might look at the barrel and say, oh, the barrel's tipping a lot. Well, yeah, but it's not a hand tip where the barrel is getting out away from her body. The barrel is still in line with her spine, and this is a position of balance. So we keep looking. As she moves out, look what happens to the hands now. So they're getting back. So take all the aesthetics out of it and look under the hood at what's actually happening. We have our hinge position. We have that position. Knee inside of the hip inside of the knee inside of the foot. As I'm making my move forward, my hands and my barrel are in that quote unquote 45-degree range that you like to see. And when the front foot lands, look at the position that we're in. Again, hips inside the knee, inside the foot. Knees are bowed out, the same position that you saw working off the tee. And, I'm in position of stretch. So I'm in a good position. So take all this stuff out of it. and look under the hood, and I'm in a good spot. So now, as you can see, like I said, she did a really, really good job of learning this early without really learning it. As I turn from the middle, if I turn from the middle, watch what happens to the shoulders. The natural sloping of the shoulders. So the back arm starts to get down. And as you can see, the arms stay up. As you can see, if you watch the middle and then watch the belt buckle, the pelvis begins to open and the arms start to get back. So now the knob gets turned up and now the hands stay along the shoulder line. Then that way, now you start to get the depth and all the out front that everybody talks about. But all these things are caused by other things happening very, very well. So if I play this a little faster, you can see she's not getting to a position and then making a decision to swing. Her body is loading through launch. Load through launch. Don't load to launch and then make a decision to go. Load through it. And now all those things that you like to see or like everybody talks about starts to happen because the body set itself up to do those things. So that's an under the hood look at what is going on and not just looking at the big leg kick, the big barrel tip, and drawing some conclusion without really understanding what's going on here. So that's the change that she made. She's able to get to a position much better, even though it looks a little, I guess you would say funky to some people, but she was able to get to that position more consistently. So let's go to this one since it was early in the year. So this is a ball she hit against Lamar. Lamar has very, very large fences, so this ball didn't go out. It should have. So again, as you can see now how good this flow is at this point. Like it never looks like from the very start that her barrel never stops moving. Like it's just moving the whole time, but that's because of her setup. So now, again, let's look under the hood. I'm getting up early. This is how she gets up, but look where she gets. So because of the leg kicking and the bigger barrel action, you can kind of see she gets up like before the pitcher ever really starts her arm circle. This is because she has to, because her moves are a little bit bigger. If you were here last week and you watched my video session with Riley started about 2 more frames later because her move is not as big. So they're still starting on time. I want to be on time for the move that I am making. If my move is a little bit bigger and has a little bit more life to it, I'm going to have to start a little bit sooner. If my move does not have as much life to it and it's much, much smaller, I may start a hair later, but they're all going to start within that same window. I think that's one of the bigger things that some of our girls have to learn. Their first question a lot of times to me is, well, when do I start? And unfortunately, my answer is, well, I don't know. I don't make your move. Like you're going to have to learn how to do that on your own. The way that we're going to learn how to do that is by having a lot of reps and you understanding. The one thing that I say is you get to your spot before the pitcher gets to hers, whatever that looks like. Now you understand what your spot is because we've repped that out through practice. I want you to be at your spot before she's at hers. If you get to your spot first, you win. If you get to your spot second and she beats you there through her arm circle, then you lose. You lose as in all your moves are going to be sped up. You may not even complete all your moves, and then therefore you're going to be in a poor position to read spin, speed, and location, and you're probably going to make a bad decision because your body and your brain is going to be sped up. If I get up early and I win that battle, and I give myself all my time to see speed, spin, and location, I'm going to give myself a really good chance to make a good decision. And that's really what, when you talk about timing, is I want to get to my spot first before her. That way I can make good decisions. If I make a lot of good decisions, I get a lot of quality swings off. If I make a lot of bad decisions, I'm probably going to chase a lot, probably going to miss pitches that I could hit. And then you get into a bunch of other stuff. So again, up early and, just go play. So let's move it along. So I want to show this because at that time. We've had some later, but at that time, I'd never seen the ball hit like this before. I just want you to watch this. So you see this light pole. It's in right center. Bailee hit this ball on top of the light pole. Now, this year, we've had some people that have exceeded that, unfortunate Bailee. But at that time, I'd never seen anyone hit a ball at our field that far. So, again, let's look under the hood. So, look how early she has a bigger move. So, I got to get up sooner. So, Cheatham's throwing BP here. So, as you can see, she's starting her circle, and Bailee's already starting her move so she can have time. So, as the ball is being released, she's making her move forward. So, I got plenty of time to read spin, speed, and location. And I hit this ball off that light pole. Let's keep going. So here's a, let's go to this one. This is a grand slam here against,
if we do what you like.
against UAB. So this is the backside view. As you can see, the heels stand down on the ground. Middle's the first thing to go. And a lot of really good
You love,
things.
you don't work a day in your life. And
Where's the next one I want to show? Let's go to Western Kentucky. Let's go Texas State.
Son, here's a 2-2 punch. There's a well-hit ball. Son, here's a 2-2 punch. There's a well-hit ball to right field, and UTSA has taken a 3-1 lead.
So this is a changeup, as you can maybe see.
Here's a 2-2 punch.
So
UTSA has taken
the barrels, like in this video, the barrel's really all over the place. And I think it happened because it was a changeup. And she probably subconsciously was just timing it up. It's like saw it slower, so gave herself a little bit more time.
Son, here's a 2-2 punch.
Kind of goes out there and gets the ball.
There's a well-hit ball to
Sometimes
right
that
field,
happens.
and UTSA has taken a 3-1 lead.
We have swing and a hold. I'll show this one just so you can kind of see the actions happen. So the top is a take, so you can see all the things that you want to see. And so how Bailee shut her swing down, she shut her swing down kind of with her, she would let her chest go forward. And it told, I don't know, I gotta ask her, did this tell you when you felt your chest get out there forward that you were probably in a bad spot?
I mean, yeah, like I said before, my biggest issue was trying to go get the ball, and just because I changed my swing doesn't mean that didn't happen. So yeah, I think that was a part of it. I think that also, I'm almost positive that was an off speed or a changeup as well. That's
true.
Me getting fooled, and then also getting fooled with my body, but being able to hold off still.
Being able to shut. So as you can see, the barrel flows the whole time, and she doesn't make the decision to probably not swing till about right there.
Yeah.
And the ball is showing up in the frame. But again, all these moves and things just equate to me being able to go, no, and I can shut it down, versus I'm already out front, haven't really read the speed, spin, and location. I might have to swing. I probably should swing. I swing, and then this ball is down in the dirt, and now I'm I swung at a bad pitch. My mentals go bad, and I kind of lose that at bat a little bit. Let's go to this one. Let's go to Western Kentucky. I haven't shown that one yet. So as you can see, Bailee hit this ball a really, really long way. Western Kentucky has a scoreboard in right center, or right field, and this ball cleared the scoreboard and was still going up when it left. But again, up to a position of balance, and then as I move forward, I'm getting in my good position, and as the middle starts to go, you can see how the action of the bat work. This ball it was about chest high.
Pretty high.
Yeah, it was pretty high. So you can see you hear people talk about launch angle swing or whatever, rise balls will kill you. Well, this ball is elevated. So you can see how it flattens out. So if I'm moving well and I'm understanding how to bend and things, I'll adjust if the ball is up. I'm not going to swing uphill at this pitch that's elevated. I'm going to be able to make that adjustment as I read it and still be able to handle that pitch.
I feel like that can also show that just because I had a hand pump doesn't mean I couldn't get to that pitch.
Correct, because it was imbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of I'm going to show this one. This is Bailee working. Where is it? The cage video. Here it. No. Here, cage work on your own. No, where is it?
That one. You just passed it.
No,
Right
not this one. Not the one you're working on your own. The one where you were sitting on the bucket.
Oh.
No, I can't find it.
I don't think you had it in here.
Did I not have it in here? I might not have put it in here. That's fine. No big deal. I'm going to show this one. This one's from overhead. Working on the ball away here. So biggest thing I want you to see here is kind of watch the back shoulder. So watch the barrel, the hands, and the back shoulder on this pitch. So you can see, like, once the front foot hits and she starts to rotate, the head stays still, but you can see the arc of the barrel. How, yes, it's working from behind, but then it gets out front. So this ball is away, and you can see the contact point is not like back here. It's still out in front, and the hands stay connected to the shoulder for a really, really long time, which is why one of the reasons she's consistently able to drive that ball that way. Before I get to the comparison, I'm going to show this one. This ball, this right here won the game against Southern Miss in the conference tournament. So this is a ball she takes. Again, this is ability to see a lot of different things. Pitcher's getting up, starting to complete. She's in a position of balance. Move forward to what I see. And then see the middle start to turn. Work behind the ball. This ball is, away from me, and drive this ball off the left center field fence for a double. We end up winning the game 4-2, but this swing right here put us up 3-2. So I'm going to go to some of the combos now. So again, this is the 1-2 on the left are sophomore year. The one in the top right corner is as a junior, and then the one in the bottom right corner is as a senior. Biggest thing you need to see, if you look at the one in the bottom left corner, you can see how late, she starts compared to the pitcher. Like, the pitcher is already kind of about to let the ball go, and Bailee's right foot is still tapping, still trying to tap on the ground. And she hits this ball out on the bottom left, by the way. But her foot's still tapping on the ground, trying to find time. Whereas if you look at the two on the right, look where the pitcher is in the top right corner, and look where Bailee is, or starts to get to. So as the pitcher's releasing the ball, look where her body is in the top right corner. The pitcher's coming behind, and Bailee's already at the top of the lift. So now she comes forward. I got plenty of time to read it and see it, and I can make a better decision. Same thing in the bottom right corner. She's starting her windmill. Bailee's getting into her position, so I can read it and see it. I can make a good decision. So Bailee, your senior year, I have my own thoughts about that, but just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think really all that happened was I just got in my own way. I still had a decent year. I still I hit 11, I think, still hit a little bit above 300. So very similar stats to my sophomore year. Truthfully, I just got in my own way. I felt a lot of pressure from my junior year. Almost every single time I was on campus, I had someone coming up to me talking about hitting home runs. And it kind of felt like that was the only thing that people cared about in a way. So my junior year was really carefree, didn't really have a lot of expectations, didn't really, feel the need to do what I did. It just happened. And then my senior year, you get into, I got to do better than that. I got to beat it. I got to replicate that. I got to, meet people's expectations. And I felt like I was spending the entire season trying to fight to keep my head above water in that aspect, because I internalize all of those comments and all of those expectations. And it really took until the one where he talked about with Southern Miss, where I put us up 3-2. It sucks because that was the last day of my career, but that was really the day I finally let expectations go, and I just played, and I had one of the best days of my career. And it took that long to let go of those expectations. So nothing was really different. I wasn't any worse. I was just as good. Pitchers knew that they wanted to get me out. Pitchers knew a little bit more of how to get me out, and I was a bigger target, I would say. Kind of like that. She's the one you got to get out in the lineup. She's the one you got to beat. So I did have that working against me as well. But yeah, and I would say the biggest thing was I got in my own way. And I talked a little bit before, like my freshman year with my mental struggles. It can be really hard to come off of that and to come off of a year where you're kind of the star and everyone's looking at you and you just keep producing. And it didn't really get to me until we kind of started to get into the end of the fall of my senior year and into the beginning of the spring. I let myself down in that aspect, and I think it's really easy to do. It happens to a lot of players, happens to a lot of players who are good and who come off of really good years. So it's not like it's uncommon, but yeah, I really just got in my own way, and I didn't stick to that approach I talked about. And the times I did, because sometimes I would go back to it, but it got really hard to quiet the noise in my head to be able to stick to that approach. So it wasn't for lack of trying. It was just like I'm trying to stick to that same approach. But for one, I was getting pitched a little different, so it was harder. And two, I had so much noise of, I have to come up in this moment. I have to get a hit here. I'm 0 for 2. I have to get my one hit for the game. I haven't hit a home run in a week. I have to get one. So that noise was really hard to quiet because I was trying so hard to live up to expectations. How to remedy that? I mean, hindsight's 2020, it's easy for me to sit here and say I could go back and fix it and do better, but in the moment, it's so extremely difficult. So really nothing changed. I kept working hard. I worked really, really hard my senior year. I understood things more. I kept trying to get better. I kept, doing all that. It was just really mentally was my biggest struggle. So
I would agree with that statement. So, that's all that I really have for you. Like I wanted to show you and some things. Now we're going to open it up. And if people have any questions, how I wanted to do questions, just ask your question. Both Bailee and I will try and answer the same question from both of our perspectives on the same thing. If there was something that you wanted, I didn't show all the videos, but for obvious reasons, but if there's something you would like me to go back to explain or her to go back to explain, we will try to do that. It's 8:45 right now. Let's see if we can take questions to maybe 9:05. And then I'll let you guys go.
I got one for you, Coach.
Okay.
And it's really directed at you and Bailee, and it has to kind of do with like mental processing. So Bailee, and I wrote this down. It's just, how is it different, dealing with Coach Salt, because he's very technical, as opposed, when it comes to the body, as opposed to coaches just saying, hey, just do this. One of the things that you really hear him talk about is creating a move. And then looking at those videos that he showed from your freshman all the way to your senior year, you really got away from that thing that he likes to call lateral sway. It looks like that was really eliminated. So if you guys can maybe talk about some of the things that you did to eliminate that lateral sway, that'd be good.
So for me, it was just being really conscious of it, I would say. So there's really it's just kind of hitting the ground hard with it. I talked a little bit about before, but getting in front of the mirror is something that I think is really, really helpful, especially for someone like me. I'm a big visual learner. I learn much better from examples rather than you telling me what to do. And so that's kind of a good thing with Carlton, because he really does, he likes to send the GIFs and post the videos and that kind of stuff. So that was really helpful for me because I'm a big visual learner. You could be like, hey, you got to tilt your hips this way and you can't do this. And dude, what? Like, just show me, you know? So knowing how you learn and knowing what works for you was an advantage I had, because I knew it's just in class, in softball, big visual learner. So I think we kind of clicked in that aspect, and it was kind of like a no BS kind of thing. It was, you know, come in, here's what we're going to do. Here's what I want from you. And that's kind of what I needed. Because like I said before, I had a lot of coaches being like, well, you know, you can be really good and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool, how? Cool, how? You know, and I finally got that how, and I was like, cool, give it to me straight. How do I do it? This is how I'm going to do it. Cool. So that was the biggest thing for me. I think we clicked really well in that aspect.
Yeah, you know, Bailee had an advantage. Bailee tumbled when she was younger. So
Genetics. People
I
don't know.
thought you tumbled.
I did, but I did power tumbling, which is gymnastics. It's not like what you see with like Simone Biles. It's a little different, a little bit different events, but same concept.
Okay, gymnastics. So once I explained to her what I wanted her to do and what it looked like, it did not take her very long to pick up the feel of it. It's like, oh, this is what it feels like. It's like, yeah, it's like, okay, this is a little awkward. Can I do it another way? Yeah, which you saw in that very, very first video, how she was like kind of preset, was kind of like swaying, but like would get it and then would lose it. It was like, okay, like I know what I'm supposed to feel. Okay, now I just got to find a way like that my body can do it. And then I got to find a way to repeat it. So for her, it was really like, I tell her all the time, I was like, you were fortunate because I said you did that. So you had awareness of time and space and how your body moved through that. So once you were able to feel it, I was like, it didn't take you very long to pick it up. For kids that don't feel time and space very well, you're going to have to go more into, you know, the constraint type stuff. They're going to have to put their feet together. They're going to have to get off the bucket. You're going to have to cross their feet. Like they're probably going to have to go into the weight room with like a 10-pound dumbbell or something and just learn how to hinge. Okay, I feel my hamstrings getting tight. Stand up. Do it again. Do it again. Like you're going to have to create a little bit of those feels for people.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And just one other thing too, you know, one of the things that a lot of I hear a lot of college coaches talking about, and I've even heard you mention it 100 times. A lot of people now are talking about that hinge on that back hip. I mean, that's something I'm sure you, Carlton, could probably do an entire series just on that hinge and that coil. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of that can honestly be trained in the weight room real fast. You know, if you go in and we're talking about, you know, kettlebell, you're talking about goblet squats, you're talking about single leg deadlifting, two-hand deadlifting, contralateral stuff, lunges, even though lunges are a little bit quiet, but you still have to have some hinge in there. We can go blocked goblet squats against a bench, so my knees don't push myself back, or I'm not cheating it by flexing my spine. I'm actually getting the hinge. So there's a lot of ways that, besides just, all right, let's go in the cage and let's hit. Okay, hinge. They're not hinging. Okay, well, let's put the bat down. Let's grab something that has a little weight in it. Let's learn how to do that first, and then we'll build it up into the swing. Anybody else?
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
So I have a few actually. One question is more for Bailee, but what did you do your sophomore year before your junior year to keep that confidence up? Because you still felt like you were missing a lot.
Sorry, it's hard to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said that you felt like you were missing a lot of pieces your sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do to keep your confidence up? Like, what did you tell yourself?
Yeah. So, okay. Thanks, Coach. Okay. So what I talked about was my freshman year. It's hard. Can you do me a favor and turn your mic off?
Mute your mic, Lindsay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, much better. So I talked about how you go in as a freshman and everything's new. You're living in a new city. You know nobody. You don't know your coaches. And that can really be a hard adjustment to make in one semester before you start a season. So it was like the level of competition is up. I'm in a new place still, and it's harder. College is harder. Select ball, it's a lot different in that aspect, and that's a really big learning curve in itself. And so I think the thing I did really well was I took the experiences I had that I had my freshman year, and I didn't let myself forget them. I took them and I learned from them, and I knew what I wanted to do better going into my second fall, and I knew what I didn't want to do again going into that fall. So, and that looks different for everyone. So for me, I started my freshman year, I started in right kind of up until conference, and I did awful. Awful. And I know Cheatham, I see her laughing. I did pretty bad. I don't even, yeah, I just did really bad. And I got sat, deservedly so. And I got sat, and then I'm kind of sitting on the bench, and I'm, really want to, get in the game. And I remember just sitting there and being like, this is what I was afraid of, and now I'm here, and my fear is what got me here. I got myself there. Nobody did it to me. I did it to myself. I didn't, it was nobody else's fault but my own. And I remembered that, and I internalized that. I decided no more fear. I've gotten sat. It's not the end of the world. It sucks, but I'm going to live through it. And so I finally got my opportunity again, and I didn't miss. I didn't make any physical changes my freshman year. It was really just mental. Like, my swing still really wasn't that great, but I went up there with confidence, and I was like, I got what I got, and I did a lot better that second half. Like, I'm pretty sure before I got sat, I was probably hitting, I think 150 would be like generous. And as you see, like my freshman year, I got to like 268 or something. And that was because the second half I hit like a little bit below 500. I think it was 4 something in the second half. And the only thing that changed was my mentality. So it's okay if you don't have the best swing. It's okay if you're not the best one. It's okay if you don't, if you're not figuring out all this kind of stuff. Like I said, the only difference between my junior and senior year, the only difference between my freshman and sophomore year was my head. I got in my own way a lot throughout my career, and I had to continuously, I see you, Cheatham, I see you nodding. And it was just learning how to get over that, and learning how to calm yourself down, learning how to have confidence in those moments that you're 0 for 10 and that you're not doing well. And I can't give you like a magic answer for that. It's everybody has to learn it for themselves, but the sooner you can learn it, the better. So learn from the older people. Take the people who do the right thing. Take the people who the coaches obviously like more, because whether they want to admit it or not, they have people they like more. But understand why they like them. What are they doing right? Are they going to the cage? How are they working hard? Why are they successful? So learn from people who are older than you. Learn from yourself. Internalize those messages. Write them down. Do whatever you have to do. But don't continue to make the same mistakes, and don't continue to make the same mental mistakes especially.
Thanks. And another question. What is it about the wall that you did that helped you so much? Like, what exactly did you do with the wall to help?
Okay. So with the wall, it's kind of hard for me to explain. I think Carlton may be able to explain it a little bit more so he can kind of come off of what I said. The wall didn't get introduced until we were kind of well into our tournaments. So it wasn't a tool. I had kind of figured things out, but like I said, I had always struggled with the outside pitch throughout my career. And when the wall was introduced, I think it cleaned up the path a little bit to where I could stay through the outside pitch. Instead, I was still kind of coming off of it. And part of my issue is mobility, and we don't have to get into that. But it also gave me a different way to see what pitch I wanted to see, if that makes sense. So it's almost kind of like putting a little roadblock there, and then all of a sudden you see things differently. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it just kind of made me see the plate and see it, almost like made a tunnel for the ball in a way. And so I knew what part of that tunnel I wanted the ball to be in if I was going to launch, because I didn't really have trouble seeing if the ball was too low. It was more of like me chasing pitches off the plate and chasing pitches above my head. So I knew where in that tunnel I wanted the ball to be. And then it also gave me that physical of like being able to stay through it, because you do have to stay in that lane when you use the wall, or you're going to destroy the wall, which people have done before. So it really just, it's so hard to explain, but it just really made things click for me in that aspect, and on both sides. I think it cleaned me up a little bit physically, and mentally I was like, oh, okay, that's what I want to hit. And now I can hit that pitch so well. And that's a big thing to give up. Is my junior year, I pretty much gave up the inside pitch. And I struggled with being okay with that. But I gave up the inside pitch. I didn't hit the inside pitch unless they really made me. I just waited for an outside pitch, and the wall, I worked on it with the wall, because it makes it easier to hit that outside pitch, if that makes sense, because you kind of have to, unless you want to like destroy the wall with your bat. And I think mentally made me okay with that, if that makes sense. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm seeing this result in practice. I can hit the outside pitch. If I work with this enough, I can consistently recreate that. And I know I can make this my strength. And it's easier, in my opinion, to hit an outside pitch. So it's almost like cheating in a way. Like, I don't have to hit the inside pitch, so why am I going to? And that's kind of a lefty thing. I don't know if you're left-handed or not. But yeah, it just kind of gave me that confidence on both sides. So
I would say that she had hit that ball so many times in practice that like she didn't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. I will tell a funny story about the quote unquote wall. Now our kids travel with like, there's like, if there's a tool that we have that makes them get the feel that they want or keeps them on the right track, like we'll travel with it. Well, at that point we didn't travel with anything. So she had been using the wall before we went to Lubbock. And when we got there, she was like, man, like, she's like, it's like, we should have brought the wall. I was like, why didn't you bring it? She's like, I didn't know I could bring it. I was like, well, you can use a tee. And she was like, she's like, it's not the same. So Texas Tech had a Griffey swing trainer. And she goes over, she's like, hey, can I use this? It's like, yeah, just turn around. So if you know the Griffey swing trainer, it like points down like this and it sweeps up. She just flipped the Griffey swing trainer around the opposite way. So like it was pointed like up, and she literally used the Griffey swing trainer for the wall whenever we warmed up that whole weekend.
Oh, I had to have it. I was like, I would go in that cage so I could use it, and I didn't care who was waiting on me. I was like, I have to use it.
So, hey, I got something for you, Salt. Hey, so with respect to that wall and the fact that you guys introduced it a little bit later in the season to Bailee in particular, now that you've been there and you're there at the beginning of the season, are you using the wall with everybody, or are there certain players that aren't necessarily plunging, so you don't feel that you need to use it with them? So, in other words, is it a tool that you use with everybody?
We don't use the wall anymore.
Oh,
we don't. Like, I did that. I kind of feel bad because I did that, for flow, and we talked about it, and it is a great tool. But like now, again, we added to stuff in the strength and conditioning. We added some band stuff that we do. So we found some ways to help quicken the process of the kids understanding how their arms stay up to the point that we don't really need. Now, I have some that will use it sometimes, but not near to the level that we used it that first year that I was there. Scott asked a question. Scott Young, I hope you're still on here. He asked a question about, any technologies that I use to feel valuable. And I'm glad I did this, Bailee. You sent me this. I'm going to show you this, Scott. So this is the biomechanics lab. So this is Bailee the first day. This is Bailee. This is the first day we went in. This is her avatar, I guess you could say. You can see just kind of the lines and stuff drawn. I'm gonna roughly show you that. She's got that. And then here's her actual, this is a lab swing. This is the swing she takes in the lab combined with the real swing right there. Biggest thing I want you to see just from this video is if you watch the red line. So the red lines are the force plates. So if you see the big thing from the force plates, you see how the line, as she starts her move, the line obviously kind of peaks out, but as she goes forward, it stays. So it doesn't start to go forward and then the line immediately drops. And the line drops, obviously, as the swing starts to go, and then the force pressure on the front leg. The reason why I want to mention that, there's a lot of kids, if you were to put them on force plates, the back leg, the first move would be extremely high. As soon as the center of mass started to move forward, the back leg would disappear, which means that they're swaying back, shifting all of their weight forward to then decide to take a swing, which that immediately tells you, obviously, that they're not moving very, very well. And here is her lab data. So I told you that Bailee had some lower back kind of mobility issues, and you can see that here really, really fast. So if you look across the top tells you what's going on. I told you that Bailee's really, really good in her torso. If you look at the trunk, look how high that the trunk peaks. And you look down below at the hip position, you can see it's kind of like dips, and then it kind of like goes up a little bit, but then the trunk spikes really, really fast. So one thing, this was taken between her junior year. So the one thing that we did moving up to her senior year, we did a lot of change of speed stuff, because I'm not going to take, so you have to be able to take data regardless of player and kind of understands what it's telling you. So clearly, if you look at this data is telling you that her sequence was 1-3-2-4. I know a lot of people get caught up in 1-2-3-4, 1-2-3-4, but in our sport, the lead arm has to disconnect from the trunk at some point because we hit a ball that's moving through various heights, whereas in golf, the ball is always in the floor. So the lead arm is going to stay connected to the trunk for a lot longer time than it's going to stay connected with us. So you see 1-3-2-4, but also understand this graph right here was from a swing that produced 360 with 19. So why are we going to go and hammer, hey, listen, the sequence is off. It's like, okay, I hit 19. So what do you want to change? If I change this, I may make her worse. So what I did from this was, this told me that let's see if we can get the pelvis a little bit better. So she did a lot more mobility work through the course of her senior year, just to give her a little bit more range. But the trunk is so good. So you've got to really be able to hold energy in your trunk. So we're going to do a lot of changing of speed stuff. So you make sure that you understand, if I start to lose that, and I'm going to be out in front. If I start to lose this, and my chest is going to get forward too soon, and I know that that's going to put me in a bad spot. So we did a lot of change. I just basically took this information and used it to do a lot of changing of speed stuff. So she understood hold, go, just go. Oh, I see it slower, hold. She understood how to hold in those areas. So that's one way that we use tech to just kind of help you understand what was going on.
I had gotten a message earlier. I don't know if everyone saw it. I'm not really sure how Zoom works, but but Blaine said, I don't know if he's even still in here, but in your swing work, was it more feels or more measurable metrics? So I think this is a good point to bring up, because when I was at UTSA, I don't play there anymore. When I was at UTSA, we didn't have hit tracks. We used Blast a little bit, but like not really. So really, we're going off lab stuff, which I didn't really understand, and videos. But I will say that I do think that stuff is really like, and I don't know a whole lot about it. I know Carlton knows a lot more about it. I think that stuff is really helpful and can be really helpful. I think there are players, though, like me, who it almost may have hurt a little bit, because I think I would have gotten caught up in, well, I have to get my exit velo this much higher to get it like this person's, or I have to get this much better. And Cheatham, we've talked about this a little bit. So I feel like that stuff is really good, and it's really very helpful, because it can pick up things that you maybe can't see in a video or see when they hit. But be wary about sharing that with players, and understand your player and understand who they are, and if they're going to be someone like me who's going to get in their head about it, and if they're going to be someone who obsesses over it. Because if you gave me something to worry about, I was going to be obsessed with it until I fixed it or until I made it better. So that stuff's awesome. And I do to an extent wish that I had some of that. But just be wary about it with your players and understand your players enough to know what you should or shouldn't share.
So with Bailee, with the blast stuff, I never showed her anything.
Mm-mm.
I do know what all her numbers, like I still know what all her numbers, but I never showed it. Like she would put it on and she would hit. She's like, what does this mean? I was, don't worry about it. She's like, what is it telling you? Don't worry about it. You just keep playing. And basically what I was using it for was I knew that I had a good player on my hands. So I wanted to know, what exactly did that look like? So more so than swing stuff, it was telling me, eventually when I go out and recruit, like, okay, I'm looking for something in this range, because that stuff had not quite been talked about, is using, how to use detect for recruiting purposes. So that's kind of what I was trying to do with it. I'll tell you a story about the blast that I kind of learned. So as you know, Bailee has big barrel tip, a lot of movement. Her early connection score on blast is terrible. Like, it was always like really bad. So it'd be like 13 and she hit a ball, off the dorms. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But then when I started to understand what that actually meant, it was like, oh, blast isn't going to like someone that tips the bat a lot, because it's going to feel a lot of movement. It's going to be like, well, the bat never gets connected. But her connection at impact was always outstanding. And it was like, okay. And then I had some kids that don't have as much barrel movement, and their early connection scores were a little bit better, and their connection to impact scores were so-so. So I started to understand, like, okay, if there's a lot of barrel movement, I'm probably not going to worry about early connection scores. But I am going to be really concerned about connection to impact, because if connection to impact is too high, that means the barrel's not getting back as they're starting to get forward. It's probably still too vertical, which then is probably going to cause on plane issues. If someone is a little bit flatter, then I'm going to want to make sure their early connection scores are good, because if they're a little bit flatter, then they should be able to start working back sooner or quicker than someone who has a little bit more movement, and you're going to be worried about some different measures. So that's one way where she talks about, because if I would have gave her that and she would have seen her early connection score, she'd be like, why is it 12? And it was like, well, it's 12 because of your move. We're not going to change your move. But she would have been like, well, how do I get it higher? And it was like, I don't need you to get it higher. Like, don't worry about it. But that would have been like a back and forth conversation that I know that she would have had with me. So I didn't ever let her see it. I just held on to it all the time.
Yeah, there were many times actually, that I got, don't worry about it. And there were also many times, like, we would be in the cage and, like, with Carlton, like, you yell at him and, like, he yells at you, but it's not, like, serious. So there was a lot of times that I was yelling at him, like, how do I fix this? And he would just literally go like this and wouldn't say a word until I would shut up. And I would repeat myself and I would yell at him and he just wouldn't say a word. And so I'd be like, whatever. And I would just go back to hitting. But I mean, that's the kind of player I was, is that you kind of had to be that way with me. So.
Anybody else? We've got about 5 minutes. Nobody? Okay. Well, thank you. I really wanted her to do this, and one of the reasons why is because obviously for me personally, like, she was my first person, like my first player that really got it. Fortunately I've had 3 or 4 more decide that they want to do it too. But she was my first person that got it and was really able to put together a good season, but also in turn, like, took the time to learn what's actually going on, what she's trying to do, and then be able to articulate it herself to really understand it. And I've tell her all the time, if it wasn't for you, like, I probably can't do this stuff, and because really, that first year, like, nobody got it but her. And then, like, towards the end of the second year, like, there's a couple of people like, you know what, like, I'm really going to try and put in some effort. And then they got it, and another person. And so I tell her all the time, like, if it wasn't for you, like, I wouldn't be able to do this kind of stuff. So thank you for just right away trusting in me. And I hope we gave you guys some information tonight and some insights on both sides, not only in, understanding how you would make changes, what those changes would look like, whether it's a big move, a big, bold move, or it's something that's really, really small, just understanding how to go about that process. You guys take care, and everybody stay safe out there. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.